happy 50th of Pax Christi, USA. My name is Michelle Sherman. I'm the 50th anniversary coordinator on national staff, and I am here with Bishop Thomas Gumbleton, Bishop Tom, who just received the award at the Pax Christi Michigan State Conference for Bishop President Emeritus of Pax Christi, USA. So throughout our 50th anniversary year, we have young adults interviewing founding members of Pax Christi, USA.
Yes.
So I am so honored to be here, and it's wonderful to finally meet you, Bishop Tom.
Thank you very much.
So we have a few questions for you, some from our young adult caucus and some from our staff. And could you talk a little bit about how you first got involved with Pax Christi, USA?
Well, I got involved by being one of those who helped to start it. Mm-hmm. In the Catholic Church, we, over the years, had developed a way of justifying war. Mm-hmm. And it is absolutely contrary to the teachings of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to develop a movement within the church that would be able to promote the authentic teachings of Jesus about the possibility of war, violence, killing, so on. And there was one organization called Fellowship of Reconciliation, International Fellowship, and anybody who belongs to that is committed to rejecting violence. And we felt that within the Catholic Church, because just war is taught as part of our teachings, we could not expect many Catholics to commit to active love or nonviolence when the Church itself taught you could kill in war. Mm-hmm. And so we felt we couldn't join the International Fellowship of Reconciliation, and so we found the International Peace Movement, Pax Christi, which was at that point, and still is, an official movement within the Catholic Church. And within that movement, we could teach, certainly, active love, nonviolence, but we wouldn't impose it on anybody within the church. Mm-hmm. So that if a practicing Catholic who wanted to work for peace, wanted to become part of the movement, and yet still felt he or she would be justified in going to a so-called just war or participating in it, we wouldn't eliminate them. And so we could make it a peace movement that included any Catholic who wanted to become part of it, and yet still within that movement we could develop teachings on active love and nonviolence that we hope would begin to permeate the whole church and spread within the church from Pax Christi to the rest of the church. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but it's beautiful to see how Pope Francis has now developed some of these ideas and is saying that active love is the way of Jesus. Violence is not the way of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And he's actually pushed that as part of Catholic teaching. So Pax Christi is able now to, even with more commitment to the church teaching, express this idea of teaching active love, nonviolence. And so that we make that part of Pax Christi now more and more. And we hope that gradually, especially now with the support of the Holy See, Pope Francis, that every Catholic would begin to be aware of this teaching and begin to be converted to it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you. It's wonderful to hear straight from you rather than reading. I feel like I could keep listening to you continue to talk and talk and talk.
Yeah, that's true. You have to
This
show.
is wonderful. No, you already mentioned some of the challenges of when Pax Christi first started, Pax Association, Pax, and then Pax Christi, was that part of Catholic teaching is the just war theory and
Yeah.
trying to change and promote just peace.
Yeah.
Can you talk about other challenges during the first years or joys
Well,
during the first years?
Yeah, in the first year, we were at a point actually where there was great concern when we started Pax Christi about the danger of nuclear war, and we were in the Cold War, as they used to call it, and Russia and the United States as the nuclear powers, and so people were within the church much more open to the idea of needing a peace movement. And so we were able at that point actually to sign up close to 200 bishops from the U.S. Catholic Conference of Bishops to be members of Pax Christi, which was unusual because bishops ordinarily don't join organizations. You know, if you join one, you got to join them all. And so but we had bishop members of Pax Christi and became very active bishop members, which was a boost because then that helped us to spread the teachings through Pax Christi into dioceses around the whole country. And it brought the teachings that we were trying to promote into the teachings of the official church. And so that was one of the reasons we were able to get off to a good start and gain membership quite quickly. Okay.
Members and the community of the first founders of Joe Fahey, Eileen Egan, Dorothy Day. I look at the list of the first teachers of peace, Paul Hanley Furphy, all of these peacemakers. Can you talk a little bit about working with all of these great heroes, Daniel Berrigan? What was that like to be part of that community?
My personal experience?
Yes.
Yeah, well, what I would just say was a great blessing. I had never grown up within, because I grew up within the Catholic Church, I'd never grown up with any understanding of nonviolence. We were, well, in fact, it was so bad in a way that in studying theology in the seminary, we had a teacher who very, very good, one of the best of our teachers, highly respected by the students. He had been a chaplain in World War II, and he was on a ship that was sunk, but he survived, and he never spoke much about his experiences in the war, but we all were aware, this is a special person. And so, he was our moral theology teacher. And so when we got to the teachings on war, he went through all the conditions for what we came to call a just war. Conditions to start the war, conditions while you're waging the war. And he said, now I expect you to know all of these, but if you do go to war, don't worry about it. You have to do whatever the country says. And that was what I taught in theology and would be preaching as a priest. And I can hardly believe that that's the way it was, but the Catholic Church at that point was certainly not a church committed to nonviolence. And so we were kind of held back with this idea of that there is such a thing as a justified violence and justified war. But we got beyond that quite quickly. Okay, go ahead.
How about, do you have a most memorable action with Pax Christi USA?
Actions.
Yes.
Oh yes, there were quite a number. And at first, the ones I participated in were did not include civil disobedience. But before long, I got involved in actions that were civil disobedience, and because I came to the conclusion that our government policies were very, very immoral and could not be supported, the kind of war-making policies that we had. And so I did start to do acts of civil disobedience quite early on in the anti-war movement, and was arrested a number of times. But very often it didn't amount to anything. You got arrested, you went over, appeared before the judge, paid the fine, and that was it. So no jail time included or anything of that, because we didn't destroy property, or we just crossed the line and got arrested for that. So I did get involved in those sorts of things, and gradually got involved in actions where I spent a few hours in jail because in one of the places we used to do actions, they would arrest you and take you over to the jail, and then you stayed there. You know, you were shackled and with your ankle shackles and handcuffs, and you just sat in jail for a few hours until a judge could come and sign off your release. So I did spend that kind of time in jail, but that was it. No long term.
So what were you protesting? What were you?
Oh, well, usually it would be at a nuclear weapons place, either where they, like the laboratories where they design such weapons, and or where they were being produced, and the bases where there were, say, nuclear submarines stationed, and or the Strategic Air Command where the ground-based missiles were. And so it would be at a facility where there was use of weapons that were nuclear, and that was the most common thing we did, or at least that I did.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have some questions from our young adults that I'd like to share. Our young adult caucus group of young peacemakers in their 20s and 30s.
The what?
Our young peacemakers in their 20s and 30s sent in some questions for you.
Oh.
So I'm going to kind of pivot to these questions, if that's all right. David says, and some of them are messages too, says, please thank Bishop Gumbleton for his activism, work for peace and support. It's just like Jesus to those on the margins. Please ask, what gives you hope in your work for peace?
What did I hope?
What gives you hope in your work for peace? What keeps you going?
Well, fundamentally, I mean, if you most fundamentally, the hope we have is what we've been celebrating this week, and that's that Jesus came among us and showed us that death is not final. Death is overcome through the resurrection. And so his message is basically what gives us hope, and then his life, death, and resurrection. That's the basis of our hope. We know that Jesus has gone through death to new life. And so whatever happens to us, in just in our individual life or in communal life of the human race, Jesus is part of it. He became one of us in every way, except sin. And so, what he has achieved by overcoming death, we will also. And so that's the firmest foundation for hope that you could have, that what Jesus has done will happen for all of us, and that what he promised, that when he said the reign of God is at hand, meant the reign of God is where everything happens according to God's way of love. And he said that's beginning when he was among us on the earth. It's at hand. It's ready to start. Follow me, and it will happen. So his message and his invitation to follow him is what gives us the hope that we can, through him, bring about what he went through with his passion, death, and resurrection, and bring that to our world and bring the reign of God into its fullness. So
The of Pax Christi. The Christi part of Pax Christi.
yeah, right. Yeah, that's true.
We have a question from Honorine, Honorine is one of our young adults, and she says, What advice would you give for young peacemakers today?
Well, my advice would basically be listen to Jesus. I mean, in every way you can, and that so. Jesus said about himself, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," and he is. And so, if we want to find a way to fullness of life, to peace, to joy, to love, and find a way to bring about the reign of God, which is God's love guiding everything that happens. If we want that, we have to listen to him, follow him, do our part to spread his message wherever we can, and to make the reign of God happen wherever we are. And so my, there's 2 or 3 places in the Gospels, well, Luke especially, where Luke remarks about Mary, Jesus' mother. She listened and pondered in her heart on his words. And that's what we have to do, is listen, ponder, and follow. And you should start when you're a young person, not wait till you're an adult and you say, oh, well, I'll do it when I grow up. No, right from the beginning, as soon as you become aware of Jesus, you try to listen deeply to what he says and to integrate it into your life and follow him. So that sounds maybe quite idealistic, but it's practical. It really is. The scriptures are there, his example is there, all his teachings are there. So if we listen and follow, then we will participate in making the reign of God.
Your life is a witness of that. Your life is a witness of that.
Well,
Constantly listening to the voice of the nonviolent Jesus
okay.
and acting. What's your hope for the Catholic peace movement today? If you were to think of Pax Christi the next 50 years, the next 150 years,
Well,
what's your hope?
my ultimate hope is it becomes, Pax Christi becomes the life of the church. In other words, that our whole church, and that as a large community, but that every individual within the community becomes filled with the idea of the peace of Christ, and to bring that, make it happen first within yourself, and then begin to share that and spread that. And again, I think Pope Francis is a very hopeful sign, because he has made the nonviolence of Jesus an important part of Catholic teaching, and so it is penetrating the church more fully than it has in the past, and that's my hope, that our church will become what people call a peace church, where everyone will be committed to follow Jesus fully, and not just think, oh, that's the ideal, that you give up violence. And it's not for me. Well, it is. It's for every one of us. And when we all do that, then that's when the reign of God really will break forth. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's my hope too. I'm crying. Oh, thank you. I think we have, before I lose it, it's so wonderful to sit with you. And just, I feel like so many of us young adults are just walking in the footsteps. As you walk in the footsteps of Jesus, we walk in the footsteps of you and teachers of peace, and and all the people here today at Pax Christi, Michigan.